Hey there, nerds! My name is Dr. Jordan Breeding, which may sound like a supervillain name, but I assure you it is not, and you're definitely thinking of my brother, Dr. Barry Breeding. He looks like me, but he's evil. Anyway, Your Brain on Cracked is the only show on the internet that's a family program, and the only show on Cracked hosted by the father of my daughters, I hope. Today I'll diagnose the fantasy driving every comic book movie is simple. You could fix a whole lot of things if only you had superpowers. And also if you were, able to punch real good and you had a good reason for punching, and then you'd just be able to, punch all the things. And it'd be great, it'd be awesome. But mostly it's about the superheroes making things right, probably. Funny thing though, it turns out that stuff that already works in our world does a pretty good job at making things work right. And superhero stories are only possible because their versions of these institutions don't work at all. And I'm not just talking about the unnatural number of scientist-animal hybrids plaguing the neighborhood. I mean stuff that producers are just hoping you won't notice. Spider-Man 2 features Peter Parker struggling because he is unable to perform on command. And I'd make a boner joke here, but the movie helpfully includes a doctor of its own to do it for me.
My diagnosis? It's up here.
We only see the end of the visit, but it's clear that Peter got a full medical checkup. And Peter Parker, who has sworn to keep his identity as Spider-Man secret even though his life falls apart when he does, he willingly submitted to an examination by a medical professional. And you might think that the joke is that this doctor knows Peter's secret and this is a little conspiracy between them, but no, that's not what's going on at all.
You seem very okay to me.
So the doctor didn't react to seeing anything weird about this spider gene superhuman, even after checking his heart and pulse and his eyes and his reflexes, or even if we say that all those are maybe down now to human levels thanks to Peter's issues, what about the more permanent stuff, like all those sticky hairs on his fingers or those plainly visible holes in his wrists where webs may or may not shoot out of? The doctor didn't note these anomalies at all. I immediately prescribe an entire keg of Oxy to any patient who has a mole I don't like. But this doctor didn't report anything to the American Medical Society for reporting weird stuff, which is something I'm pretty sure exists. I'm a real doctor. But no, he doesn't.
You seem very okay
to me.
The scene answers the long-standing dilemma of what a secret superhero would do if they desperately needed a doctor. It turns out they don't need to worry, doctors are just dumb as rocks. How did young Clark Kent ever get by when Kansas required all school kids to be vaccinated? And they've been doing that for like 100 years, and it used to be a lot tougher. Did the Kents have to set aside a chunk of their corn money or whatever to bribe doctors to lie for them and shut up about any weirdness?
Get that corn out of my face!
I guess a doctor tries a blood test by just shattering one syringe after another and then shrugging, saying, I don't know, it must be above my pay grade. Sounds like a regular Dr. Barry Breeding to me. Yeah. Some superheroes take very special pains to keep their medical treatments on the down low, which is why I assume that Alfred does all of Bruce Wayne's colonoscopies, and also why Rosario Dawson played the part of a personal nurse to superheroes in 14 different separate Netflix shows.
I failed you. You trusted me.
But even this requires a sort of willful negligence on the part of the hospitals. They're just letting their supplies vanish and being used without explanation. When an injured Doctor Strange teleports from Nepal to a hospital, the unnamed nurse who sees him doesn't inform anyone of the wounded man who bypassed reception. And then it turns out that the building just keeps a bunch of operating rooms vacant just in case a maverick surgeon like Rachel McAdams needs to single-handedly operate on superheroes in secret without having to account for the used supplies or her own time. Meanwhile, there are office workers out there watching this video right now who can't get a stack of Post-it notes from the supply closet without having to fill out a report or engage in a torrid affair with an office manager.
You could see the squirrels and they were married.
For movies that are literal military propaganda, because, the Pentagon is always cutting deals with movies to make them look better so that we can use tanks for cheap, superhero movies make the military look pretty shitty. We come away from the Avengers thinking that a big green punching guy and one Russian lady with a handgun could do a better job fighting an alien invasion instead of, say, literally anyone in the army in a gunship. But as these movies get bigger and bigger, we get to see bigger fights, which means that we get to see some actual armies coming to play, and we're supposed to root for them. But it's just weird that these armies are way shittier than the real ones. In Black Panther, we're told that Wakanda has planes so advanced that they could just take over the whole world, whatever that means. Then, in Infinity War, we get a chance to see Wakanda united and defending itself, and their plan to wipe out a bunch of aliens behind a barrier is to charge at them with spears. What, were all their planes in the shop? If so, they could have given Ethiopia a call because Ethiopia has a sick air force. True story. My dad actually helped design an in-flight magazine for one of their commercial airlines. Ethiopia could have wiped the savannah with Thanos is my point. And also, my dad could definitely beat up Thanos' dad.
Jordan's dad versus Thanos' dad. Ready? Fight!
The army of Wakanda comes back in Endgame too, and this time they do bring a few planes, but mostly they bring thousands of foot soldiers who just fling themselves right at the open mouths of the aliens and die horribly. If calling in the military is now fair game, why not portal the heroes out of there and then just kill the aliens and their ship and everything with a couple of missiles from miles away? Man, if only they knew somebody who made their fortune selling missiles. We have something similar going on with the Amazons and Wonder Woman, and I get why missiles or machine guns wouldn't exactly suit the mythological island paradise vibe, but it's still kind of weird that we're supposed to root for a hyper-competent army of Deathbringers if, and only if, they wield tools invented 10,000 years ago. These same Amazons in Justice League fail at the one thing they've been trained to do because bows apparently aren't that powerful against aliens. I freaking love that this magic box from hell starts acting up and their only possible reaction is to point swords and arrows at it. When Steppenwolf shows up, they realize that their pointy sticks aren't enough, so they just tackle him, hoping that he'll give up like your little brother. Spoiler, that didn't work either. In Avengers: Age of Ultron, Ultron's plan involves instantly sending billions of dollars in exchange for his magic metal. You'd think Ultron would just steal the vibranium if he's so powerful and evil and he plans on destroying the whole world anyway, and he does look like he's in the mood for taking things by force.
I'm sorry, I'm so...
But he transfers money to buy the stuff just to show us his power over the internet. He's basically a less robotic Mark Zuckerberg. If this has you terrified about real hackers suddenly moving billions and bringing down whole economies, you may be relieved to learn that banks are way more worried about it than you are. That's why you can Venmo a little money for some gamer girl feet pics, no problem. But if amounts that big go in or out of someone's account in the real world, an actual human has to approve those transactions.
I'm shutting your butt down.
When the hackers got all the internet power they needed to siphon off $1 billion a few years back, they only made away with like a sliver of that before people noticed something fishy was going on. When other hackers steal millions, they can only do so by spacing it out over a long time. That's right, the Office Space heist plan was real, and only extremely patient, long-suffering hackers earn the right to do two chicks at the same time.
Damn straight. Always wanted to do that, man.
Now, check out how fiscally irresponsible the bank in Spider-Man 2 is. Not only do they cast Joel McHale as a loan officer instead of as Marvel's next great wisecracking hero, but they also salt away a large portion of their money in giant sacks of gold. Ow! Gold may be all well and good for nations to keep as reserves, but banks are supposed to keep funds in something they can, do something with. So they can lend it to businesses and people, which is how they make more money. And now you know why they couldn't approve that loan for dear old Aunt May. Their money was all tied up in being useless ass metal in a vault. Ow! In The Dark Knight Rises, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's cop character pokes around construction sites and learns that Daggett Industries has baked explosives into underground projects all over the city. Unfortunately, he discovers this mere moments before Bane detonates said explosives. But it's pretty impressive that he figures it out at all, given that, as he says when Gordon asks him to investigate,
honestly, Commissioner, I don't know anything about civil engineering.
It's almost enough to make you wish Gotham had people who did know about civil engineering looking into such things, like, say, civil engineers, ones under the city's employ, especially with the city having had a bit of a history of terrorist attacks. This isn't the anarchic, corrupt Gotham of years past, by the way, where the authorities do nothing, which is why we need a Batman. By this point, the city has totally turned itself around, now ruthlessly clamping down on criminal threats of all kinds. But when it comes to infrastructure, the only rule is no rules. Go ahead and set that bridge on fire in the shape of a bat. See if the mayor gives a shit. I'm thinking that the rule in superhero universes is if it's not physically in view, there is absolutely nobody overseeing it. That's why the sewers are a place where anything goes in The Dark Knight Rises or The Amazing Spider-Man. And in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we learned that the late Richard Parker somehow built a secret lab in a subway station that opens like an Indiana Jones temple. How he managed this boggles the mind because he didn't even have a team of goons helping him. In our world, maybe you could spray paint a dick on a subway wall without getting caught, but eventually somebody's gonna come, paint over your dick.
Oh my God.
I'll never understand what's so amusing about penises.
But in these movies, you can do major, noisy, illegal construction for years, drawing insane amounts of power, and nobody will notice as long as it's underground. Over in a different, better Spider-Man 2, we have Doc Ock performing extraordinarily dangerous work in a not-secret lab built right into his Manhattan home. Now, I'm not questioning the wisdom of a scientist strapping robot tentacles to his spine or creating his own sun. We already have an explanation for that. He's a mad scientist. Nor am I questioning the wisdom of Oscorp pursuing dangerous passion projects without regard for caution or morality. We have an explanation for that too. Its CEO is freaking James Franco.
Yo, somebody say cock? What's up? Hey. What are you guys talking about?
But I am somewhat questioning why the NYC Department of City Planning thought it was appropriate to permit nuclear experiments in an East Village loft. Let's face it, life is just more fun without zoning regulations.
I'm gonna become a civil engineer. I'm gonna design septic tanks for playgrounds. Little kids can take shits.
After years of superheroes having their way with us, movies realized that some of us were starting to ask inconvenient questions. So we got a couple of films that seemed to hold the costume heroes accountable. Batman v Superman and Civil War gave us grim retrospectives, with everyone getting really sad about past movies' destruction. But these movies tell us that we're supposed to hold heroes accountable for exactly one thing: collateral damage killing people. Death seems to be the only fear anyone has, even though there are plenty of other bad things powerful people can do. In our world, we have legal protections against all kinds of abuse. In superhero worlds, not so much.
Here you go. Oh, I was just kidding about the leg. I just need these two things. What? No, I thought it'd be funny. Was it funny? No, wait, what did he look like hopping around?
When the Avengers first assemble and are trying to find Loki's crew and the Tesseract, Coulson says,
"We're sweeping every wirelessly accessible camera on the planet. Cell phones, laptops. If it's connected to a satellite, it's eyes and ears for us."
But Banner suggests a narrower, more efficient tracking system, and in the end, they find Loki easily because, what do you know, he wasn't hiding anyway. But the surveillance system was set up before Loki and presumably continues afterward. No one questions its existence, not even the Avengers, who got super angry about S.H.I.E.L.D. secretly making weapons. That sort of limitless mass surveillance is bad, right? We know it is, if only because when the same system appeared in The Dark Knight, they practically broke the fourth wall to speak against breaking the Fourth Amendment. But unless Morgan Freeman's gonna stop by and blow the thing up himself, it'll continue because the superhero world has no check on that sort of thing. Does the Constitution not apply to S.H.I.E.L.D.? I mean, if a citizen discovered what they were doing, what would their legal recourse even be? And I know that S.H.I.E.L.D. turns out to be run by super Nazis and it's brought down a couple of films later, but that's only because its own employees testify about the agency trying to actively kill millions of people. Again, people dying is the only danger superhero law wants to protect against.
Come on now, you guys.
Now, you might say that laws wouldn't make any difference even if these worlds wanted to pass some, since heroes just ignore the law anyway, and yet law enforcement, the ones bound by the laws, they work with heroes whether they want to admit it or not. The very police forces that condemn Batman, Spider-Man, or Daredevil as vigilantes dutifully arrest the people that these heroes string up. In our world, you could go to the police station and share your suspicions about someone, and police might follow up on that. But if you try tying a mugger up in an alley and then fleeing the scene, the cops won't interview him about robbing you. They're gonna interview him about getting assaulted, not arrest him based on evidence they don't have. Originally, police finding the hero's handiwork and just trusting him was, part of this whole fantasy. Superheroes can heroically bypass due process because they're right about everything. But the more superhero movies we get, the more we see heroes getting it wrong, like all the time.
Shouldn't steal cars, it's bad. It's my car, dumbass! Hey!
The very first crime-fighting montage we have of Tom Holland's Spider-Man shows him mistakenly webbing a guy for breaking into his own car. And apparently when heroes meet each other for the first time, they almost always attack each other over what appears to be a wacky misunderstanding.
I'll do you one better.
Why is Gamora?
We're supposed to believe that every other opponent they go after is someone the police should lock up, no questions asked. In general, it's a weird fantasy to cling to, right? It's like looking at American police and saying, you know what would help these guys do their jobs better? If they weren't accountable for their actions or methods at all.
Come on, you can't be this stupid.
Okay, let's see. So, demanded a day of recognition for the unsung sewer inspector, proved that the US military should be a lot more free with all those bombs they want to drop, and I believe informed everyone that Nick Fury uses his one good eye to watch you masturbate. Be sure to see Kathy on your way out for some drugs that will make you fly. I mean, they won't give you powers, they'll just make you look cool. Because drugs are cool. Wait, actually it says it'll make you feel like you can fly, and it takes a long time for it to kick in?
I've come to love being in my human form.
Hi. I fucking hate. Good morning.